Hello, and welcome to the Self-Care with Herbs segment of the Elder Tree podcast. I'm your host, Jess Bosker, naturopath, herbalist, and medicine maker. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Bandjalang people, the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, come along and join me each month for beautiful conversations with guests from across the country, exploring ways we can weave plant medicine into our days to enrich our experience of self-care, sharing routines, rituals and recipes for elevating mind, body and spirit. Dalee Ella is an artist exploring themes of interconnection, land-based relating, connection and relationship. She lives and works on Bandjalang country in northern New South Wales, Australia. Dalee was actually my first ever guest on the Self-Care with Herbs segment back in November 2022. At that time, she was feeling hugely connected to her garden and herbs around her, which was very much influencing her creativity and her work. She was excited about an upcoming collaboration with Gwyllem Clothing. This conversation is a full circle moment where Dalee has now changed the way that she works. She's continuing to work with Clarey on their beautiful prints on clothing. But Dalee now has made some shifts after experiencing a very intense period of productivity with Clarey over the past 18 to 24 months. We reflect on her experience of burnout and nervous system dysregulation and how that was reflected in cracks developing in her relationships with family, nature and her garden. Dalee expresses a light bulb moment where she reflected that she needed stillness, slowness and connectedness to spark her creativity. She speaks candidly about her experience of perimenopause and the way that the hormonal fluctuations impacted on the ability of her nervous system to hold the stress she was currently experiencing. Dalee reflects on the anchors that she has returned to help her come back to that place of stillness. And we also have a beautiful conversation about two wonderful herbal adaptogens, Withania and Tulsi, that can be hugely supportive during times of intense stress. This is a wide-reaching and wonderful conversation where Dalee speaks with honesty and clarity, and I'm sure that you are going to find something that you love. Hello and welcome to the Self-Care with Herbs segment of the Elder Tree. Dalee, it's so nice to have you back again.
Thanks, Jess. It's so nice to be here.
We were just reflecting that you were actually the first ever guest on this segment back in November 2022, a very long time ago.
That's pretty wild. It doesn't seem like that long ago, but it also seems like a world ago, a life ago.
I know. We were reflecting at that time how connected you felt to your beautiful garden, to herbs, how your creativity was really flowing, and you were just about to embark on a collaboration with Gwyllem Clothing.
Yes, I've been on an epic journey in between when we spoke last on the podcast to now, and a lot has happened and a lot has changed, and it does feel like a bit of a full circle coming back. And actually feels like talking to you today here is like a bit of a marker of I'm coming back to myself, like I'm coming home to the things that really are inspiring me again.
Yeah.
So thank you for being part of that flow and for,
Isn't it lovely to have that full circle moment and to have that time to reflect? Because that's what this conversation will be, a real reflection for you on how that journey has unfolded and where you are now and how that is different to how you were back in 2022 when we chatted all that time ago.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. So when we did chat back then, you were about to embark on this amazing journey with Gwyllem where you were transferring your beautiful prints onto clothing. Let's talk a little bit about how that unfolded.
Sure. So I think when we spoke last, I was very much, I'd reached a point with my paper prints and my paper making where I was in a real flow that was really connected to my garden, and I was really, really loving that, but also kind of wanting more or seeking like more experience or more ways that I could share these prints that I was making. And Clarey, who from Gwyllem Clothing, which is now Storyline is her brand now, we have been really close mates for a long time. We lived on community together where we first connected, and we've always created together in pretty like fun, wacky kind of ways, just for fun. And I think it was one day I just said to her, do you want to collaborate? Do you want to, and that it's interesting because we used to, 7 years ago or 7 years before we started this journey that I'm about to talk about, we did work together on our community, and I was hand printing my botanical inspired lino prints onto her clothing, and we were doing that all up here on the community, and we did that actually together for about 7 years. So we had worked together in the past. So when I sort of said, do you want to collaborate, it was, she just went yes, and in true her and I energy, it just explosively began, which is how we roll. And we just started to go for it. So there wasn't a lot of, preconceived thought of this was going to go this way and this was going to be like this and this was going to take us to this place. We kind of just dove in, went nuts and did it. And so my prints, we turned them into screen prints, and they became screen printed directly onto our fabrics, and then clothing was made from them all in Melbourne.
That is such I remember watching the video of you looking at a plain black set of clothing that Clarey had made, thinking, oh, I'd love to see my print on this. And then the way that it just kind of exploded from there was so beautiful.
Yeah, well, the idea that to be able to wear these prints that held so much meaning for me, and that they are ultimately, for me, my prints, they remind me about the relationships that I have with the living, growing world around me and with the animals and the plants that I have developed relationship with or am trying to develop relationship with. So the idea of wearing them felt so exciting, to take it to that level of not just having them in your space as these reminders of the relationships, but to actually carry them around. So I loved the idea to take that to that next level. And Clarey's clothing, it just all flowed. It just all worked. Yeah.
And I love how each of the prints had that beautiful story that you really expressed so beautifully, so that people could really connect with that artwork. And as you said, then they felt connected to whatever was in that print, and all of those things were nature connected, and they're then carrying that. So those ripples were flowing out into the community.
Yes, yeah, and we really saw that happening. I really heard beautiful stories from people who were buying and wearing our clothes that were really feeling those stories and thinking about them, and it was happening. That wish that those ripples, go out and affect other people and help them to stay connected. Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's still happening. It's happening. Was happening, and it is still happening. Yeah, it's special.
And those clothes will live on, and those connections will continue.
Yeah, and we're still making them, but in a different way. Yeah.
And you mentioned that, you and Claire are both so enthusiastic and full of ideas, and the journey just kind of exploded. And I remember witnessing a particularly intense time for you both when you took the show on the road. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that unfolded and how that affected you both?
Yeah, so sometimes you have these friendships in your life. Well, I don't know if other people do, but I definitely have in my life met really special sisters who there's just this wild connection and this incredible creative flow. And Clarey and I we really share that space. Really, yeah, explosively is the word. So we are both quite fast-brained and fast-paced, and together we were double fast-paced and double fast-brained. So we built the clothing up to a point to then start taking to the cities, to the big design markets and the art markets, to try and get our stuff out there more, build the business, share our creations, and that meant for me leaving my family, getting in the van with all of the gear and all of the stall, and that's after building the stall and getting all the gear, and traveling a bit down to the cities, which were really fun times and was fantastic adventures, but it was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot for both of us. Yeah.
I remember reading some words that you noted down about, it was about February 24, I think, and I think that was after the time when you had that really intense period of working really tight deadlines, being away a lot, not being able to slow down or have that stillness. And I remember reading how you were starting to feel really disconnected from those things that were grounding you. Your relationships with family and friends were suffering. You weren't feeling as connected to the garden and really not having that time in nature. Do you want to reflect a little bit on that?
Yeah, it's interesting now looking back because I'm in such a different place now that, they're not having the ability to to understand how much that I could actually hold. And it's really fascinating because that lack of knowing or understanding, I feel is directly related to the state of my nervous system, to where my hormones are at as a perimenopausal 40-year-old woman. I feel it's also interconnected with the bigger picture. And when I started to feel that disconnection creeping in, when I guess I started to not realize intellectually, but physically my body was starting to tell me, you're doing too much and you're trying to hold too much. And because of the collaboration with Clarey and the energy that we have and the pace at which we were trying to create this creation that we were, endeavoring to do, and the pace that we kind of needed to financially as well to make it work for the both of us, there was a bit of there was pressure there, I suppose. And my body started to then tell me through the disconnection with, the things that really mattered, like my garden started to reflect my inner state, and my family relationships were getting strained, and but even then when that began, I still didn't have the capacity to really understand or listen to those whispers of my body, of my mind. It's really fascinating looking back at how focused you can get on a project, or how focused you can get on a idea as a creative person, with a fast, crazy brain to miss those signals. So that's been a really big learning for me. I don't know what the question was. Sorry, I went on a bit of
you're answering it. You're just reflecting on that sense of disconnection. I'm wondering, reflecting back now, can you see and put your finger on some of the things that started to niggle in your body at that time?
Really, a lot of it was very like mental, I guess, which I think a lot of stress and kind of underlying stress. And still just like keeping on going, like feeling like I had to keep on going and going. And my body responded to that stress with just a real, like, losing energy and sleep started being disturbed, and all of the kind of basic things, forgetting to drink water, forgetting to stay hydrated, kind of the basic needs were kind of, there wasn't even space for remembering those.
It's almost where you get to the point where you're just not tending to your body's needs at all because you're operating on a different level.
Yeah, I didn't have the time or space to look after myself, and I really didn't look after myself. And you know, that of course ripples out into the ecosystem of your family, and of course it ripples out into, you know, I guess the project that we were doing with our collaborative clothing, it was kind of flourishing, and it was, you know, it was growing, and we were giving it a lot of energy. And I guess seeing that grow and seeing people's responses to that, and people receiving those creations with such inspiration and joy and gratitude, that kept feeding it, and, you know, kept us going. And then there's the pressure of the system, you know, of you gotta make cash, and you've gotta support your family. And so I think those voices were so loud, and those energies were so loud for me, that I wasn't able to remain connected with actually what really, really matters, which are the simple things, really, the simple, nourishing things that you do. You know, I wasn't doing them. I wasn't tending to myself. Yeah. And of course I was putting my kids and my family before me, like, as always. And I completely crumbled.
I loved seeing your honesty. Both of you and Clarey had a beautiful honesty where you were really upfront and transparent about what was happening behind the scenes as a result of these structures that are in place that require us to, you know, keep going beyond excess to the point where, as you said, you started to crumble and started to experience symptoms of burnout. I also loved witnessing how you started to shift your business as a reflection of how that was impacting on you. Do you want to talk about that process and how that sort of unfolded as a necessity of what you experienced?
Yeah, it's interesting because from the very, very beginning, when we first started the business together, we did begin it with a lot of intention for creating a holistic system that was going to not only support us but support the environment and support the other people we were working with. And we put a lot of effort into really planning to make sure it was going to be a nourishing adventure for everybody involved. So it's interesting because it's not, I mean, I talk about, you know, the pressures of the system and of it all, but we also, as perimenopausal women, that whole side of the story is the other big part that, you know, because we look back and go, I wonder if we were in our 20s or early 30s, would we have been able to hold it all? Would we have been able to continue at the pace we were going, and still, would we have had the energy? I mean, probably not really, but like maybe a bit more.
Yes.
So when things, you know, started to get difficult for both of us, we kept on going back to that holistic planning that we did in the beginning, and we started to really talk a lot about self-care first. You know, we have to keep self-care at the center of this thing if we're going to do it. And we kept coming to this place of nothing's more important than our health and our happiness. And we did really keep that at the center the whole time, even though we both still crumbled in both of our different ways. I still feel like the business, as big and full on as it was still nourishing, because we still had those intentions at the center, and we were still having those conversations. I mean, I think we probably spent a third of our time, you know, doing this thing, really sitting on our therapy couch, we call it, in our studio, and just chatting through where we were at and how we were feeling and what was going on, and lots of crying and lots of big feelings and lots of, real truth around it all. And we came to a place of really shifting and changing things, but it wasn't just because it was too much. It was also because of where we were at in this time of life as women. And what we needed. And for me, it was a real wake-up call of what's actually important, the most important, and what, because I guess, you know, a year into the business, and then 2 years in, if we take that timeline from the very beginning of when we were collaborating, I had not made any prints from that place of really relating to my garden and the plants and the animals. Like, I had made them for the clothing and that, but I just wasn't making enough of them to really keep me connected. And through this whole process, it's really made me realize how important my creative practice is to keep me connected. And so I needed to shift things to be able to keep on making my work as a way of keeping myself in relationship, which is what keeps me grounded, is what keeps me healthy ultimately. So we put all of these things in place, and we tried a lot of things, but what I guess it came down to in the end was, for me, having teenage boys, homeschooling them, still building our handmade home, not quite having enough space to work still, came down to that choice of stepping back from the business into only creating the artwork and not running the business anymore, and to then continuing to make space to make my other work. And that is so important for me as an artist, and at this point of time as a woman, it's what I need to do. I need to do it and believe in it. And even if it's not going to be what is going to bring in, you know, all of this money, it'll bring in enough. And that's, if I have then the space and the time to look after myself and to nourish myself, which then ripples out and nourishes my family, then that's the most important thing.
I'd love to pull out two threads from what you've just spoken about. The first one is, Can you share a little bit about what that process that you and Clarey went through when you did your holistic planning for the business, and what sort of resources and tools did you bring into that process?
Yeah, holistic planning is a very, very, very cool way of looking at any kind of big thing that you're doing, or any anything in life, really. A business, it could be even like why, what you want your home to bring into your life, what you want your diet to bring into your life, anything. It's a system that was created by a permaculture fella. I actually forget his name right now. Amazing fellow. And he began it for his permaculture business, but started to share the resources around it. So holistic planning, it's called, or holistic decision making. There's a website online where you can get information. But it's a system where you begin looking at what you're doing from a place of, in the center, you've got your statement of purpose, like why, what's the reason that you're doing what you're doing. And then rippling out from that, you then think about what your quality of life, what you want your quality of life to be like. And you kind of think about all of those things surrounding that statement of purpose, and then you start thinking about what the actions are going to be to then bring about what it is that you're creating. So it sort of goes the opposite way from maybe the capitalist system of, where you have, wealth and power and structure in the middle, and then you do whatever it takes to get those things. It keeps your what's important to you in the center, and then what your quality of life. And it's interesting because we really put a lot of energy into creating and looking at this, and we didn't achieve it in the way that we both, crumbled a bit health-wise. But we did in lots of ways as well. It did bring a lot into what our creations are about, and the depth to the processes of making them, and all of those things that were really important as well. Yeah.
It sounds like a really beautiful way of helping to maintain the sustainability of a business without, buying into that more is better, keep going, don't stop, don't honour cycles. Yeah, I really love that. Thank you for sharing. And the other thread I'd really love to pull out is, because I know that a lot of this trajectory and this journey that you and Clarey have been on together is all about the creativity and how that drove you, and how you maybe went a little bit far with it, but also in the background overlaid all of that was the transformation you were both undergoing from a hormonal perspective.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit about, kind of what whispers pointed you in that direction, how that transformation has unfolded a little bit?
Yeah, I guess it was really such an interesting time for both Clarey and I, and such a gift really to go through a similar thing together whilst holding, this vision together. But we both were noticing more really emotional instability, and really not being able to really have the resilience to hold stresses of things. That was all of those things were kind of getting more limited. We were finding ourselves exhausted more and more often, and needing to not work and take time to just rest. And that sort of was happening more and more and more, and we were both having our independent journeys of trying to work out what was going on for us, and are both, still working some things out. But for me, it was a lot about, I guess, really being okay with the fact that my hormones were wreaking havoc, on my life, and they actually always have in some ways. And I was working with a nutritional psychologist, and I was working a bit with you, Jess, with my nervous system stuff, and then with a really great GP as well, that I finally had found one who, looked at me with empathy. I had never had that before. A doctor who understood that, hormones are big, and that was really nice. So after kind of coming to a place of being told, you probably have PMDD, and that the hormone balancing could be something that really changes my mental health, I decided, after I found it quite tricky to be okay with leaning into body identical hormones, which is what I was being told from all of these angles would really help me, and to give them a try. And I ended up getting to a point where I just was not coping. I was not coping mentally or physically, and I decided to give them a go. And that they changed everything for me pretty much instantly. My intense emotional instability and mood swings and stress around not knowing how I was going to feel from one day to the next instantly changed, and I instantly kind of got this capacity to even just think straight enough to be able to put the things back in place that I knew I needed to look after myself, to bring my nervous system back down, to ground myself out again. I was able to think about what my creative practice meant to me, and how important it was to me, and how it fed into the health of my whole system as a being. And I just kind of regained capacity to to be again. And the transformation was so huge that I'm still kind of in amazement and about the power of hormones and the power of it all. And as I kind of bring myself back down, I'm really consciously able now to see what I need and make time for that. And I've got the capacity to look forward. And I've learned from this last few years of doing too much, too fast. Like, I've learned how to plan now to then know that, I can do that thing, but it's going to take me 10 times longer than I think. And that's, learning, that's how my brain works as well, learning to work with the intense enthusiasm and energy that I innately have. I don't know if I'm answering your questions, Jess. I'm going on these rants.
Absolutely. I was going to say, though, I imagine at the beginning it would have been really easy to sweep all of those symptoms and experiences you were having aside and purely attribute them to the stress that you were under.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so what was it that made you think this is beyond that? What I need to do something more, what made you continue to dig and not go, okay, when I'm not feeling as stressed, this will all dissipate?
I just hit a point where it was just something had to shift. My relationship with my beautiful husband Jesse was really rocky, and my boys weren't feeling safe around me, actually. And I could, my garden was just this wild jungle mess. The relationships within my community were suffering. Like, I didn't have the energy to give there. And I guess I just saw it all suddenly. And it was definitely like just at quite a low point, where I just really went, I've got to do something. I've got to do something now. And that's when I started the hormones. And when at about the same time as starting the hormones, I also decided I need to step back from the business. And it's been interesting looking at both of those things happening at the same time, because I've been reflecting on, okay, how much of it was the hormones, how much of it was stepping back from the business and giving myself the time to look after and nourish myself again. And I can see now that they've both been very important. Both of those things have been very important to help me get to this point now, which is still an unfolding of, you know, what happened and how to move forward in the best way possible. I'm still digesting everything that I've learned and that I'm learning. But yeah. Whoa.
It sounds like the hormones gave you a real sense of mental stillness and mental spaciousness, and then stepping back from the business actually gave you that physical space so that you could then implement those things that your mental space was allowing you to see again, that had been completely, you know, a fog because you just couldn't see through and what you needed.
Nailed it. Exactly.
Yeah, a beautiful interweaving of two things that were really, really needed.
Yeah. And this extreme journey to a point of knowing that I needed them. It's interesting, even that in itself.
One of my favourite prints of yours is your self-care print. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that came about and what that means to you?
Yeah, that print was, I guess, me, you know, at the crux of all of this happening, and then really being so inspired still for the business. And that print was probably the pinnacle, like, print that I made while we were doing the clothing, because it was the one that I really poured my relational experience into. And so it's called Self-Care is Community Care is Earth Care. And I made that one to be a really strong reminder to myself, and to also all of the women who chose to wear that design on clothing, that we have to look after ourselves first if we want to then ripple out and have healthy communities and a healthy environment and a healthy world. And I think I needed to have that big picture in my mind and reminded of that with that print on my wall in front of me and on my body, to just keep it was like I was holding on to that, to just like to show me the way, next. And it's so interesting because the whole journey with Clarey was so much about self-care. We were trying so hard to create something that was going to be so nourishing, and we did in so many ways, but then we also didn't in so many ways. So yeah, that print is really the crux of it all, the big reminder. Self-care first. And it's such a big one in our culture, isn't it? You know, we're told as women in so many ways that, you know, you don't put yourself first. You don't. And as much as I kind of, you know it, and even through all of the planning and everything that we did, it's still that voice and that conditioning is so loud and so powerful that we still weren't quite able to hold it. And so that print really is that big, like, self-care. Self-care is at the centre.
Yeah. For those who haven't seen it, do you want to paint a little picture for them of the print?
So it depicts a figure, I suppose, with hands on heart, and growing from the throat and the head and the ears are beautiful blooms. They're imaginary, magical blooms. They're not particularly any particular plants. There is a bit of mugwort in there, actually, but otherwise they're blooms, and it shows a lot of hands coming in and picking those blooms. So yeah, it's about that. You know, when we care for ourselves, we flower and we blossom, and then those flowers and blossoms can then be shared, and others can be inspired by them or use them, or it's the rippling out of the care. Yeah.
And a beautiful visual reminder, not only for you, but for everybody else who has bought those beautiful clothes to be wearing that print, as a reminder every day that, you know, this is something that is so important for not only your health, but for the health of everything around you.
Yeah, that's what I so hoped with that print. And Clarey chose these beautiful, warm, pinky kind of tones for that print, so it's very feminine and very it's like a big hug, and the soft fabric. And we also created our wrap dress that was really centered around that print as well. So as I was creating, you know, the print with that meaning and that intention, Clarey was creating this wrap dress, so you could wrap yourself in that meaning and that reminder. Yeah, it's a powerful one, that one. Yeah,
so beautiful and special. We've talked a little bit about your ability to start to identify again what it is that you come back to bring yourself back into that state where you're able to feel that stillness and the quietness and the peace that's really necessary for your health, but also for your creativity. Are there any other things that we haven't touched on yet that are real anchor points for you that you know, when I'm doing this consistently, I'm in a good place?
Yeah, I'm still trying to work this out for myself. I'm still learning a lot about myself with this one, because I've always been quite an idealistic person who has a lot of ideas, and I have often through my life come up with ideas where I'm like, yes, this thing is going to be a great thing for me, and I'm going to do it every day, and I'm going to be consistent, and it's going to be great. And my pattern in my life has been, I'll do it for 3 days and then I'll move on to something else and do something else. And I think that innately that's just a part of who I am, but I think it's also contributes to my scatteredness, and I think like my stress as well. So at this point in time, I can feel myself shifting as I'm getting older into realizing that there are certain rituals that I do that I know are really, really good for me, and they are at the moment journaling, sketchbooking, and just giving the time just to have a really slow cuppa in the morning, and just keeping that connection with my garden. So just making sure I have my hands in the soil. And I've realized I don't need to put any pressure on myself to do those things every day, or for them to be something that I have to do at a certain time. I have them all there, and I lean into them when I feel inspired to. And my journaling is something that I do a lot more of when I have a lot more inner discomfort, and it seems to be a real place that I share things that I am struggling with or that are big things. And I've noticed I don't really journal if I'm feeling super peaceful. I don't seem to reach for my journal, probably more my sketchbook then. Because my sketchbook is something that takes me into the garden and out into the forest, and where I can sit quietly and just observe, and it quietens my mind, and it allows me to create the images that then become the ideas for my prints. And so I think it's really important for me in my creative practice, but also for my health of my nervous system, to keep on planting seeds and plants that I feel drawn to and I feel a relationship forming with. I feel like it's that process of the planting, the growing, the harvesting, the using the plants as medicine and as food. Those actions really inspire me for my print work. And I through this whole process of crumbling and now reforming myself, I guess, I have been reflecting a lot on what my creative practice is and what it means in my life. And it's always been something, I've always made art. I've always been an artist from the tiniest little kid, and I've never thought about why it is that I make art or what it's really about. I've always just done it. And I've done it in so many different ways and in so many different mediums throughout my life. I find it fascinating that I am now so interested in printmaking, with its very fine process and long, lengthy process, from when I was younger, where my work was much more big and wild and crazy and spontaneous and performative, and I find that really interesting that now printmaking is my medium. But I thought, maybe answering this question, I could share a bit that I wrote in my journal.
I'd love you to.
That I feel like this really, I was reading back over it this morning and I found this bit, and this is all just written flow state, so hopefully it makes sense to anybody else. But this really, I think, captures what I've learned in my creative process and how it's related to my holistic health, how important this process is to me because of what it brings. So I'll read this out, hey?
Yeah, I'd love you to.
Okay, so I am re-establishing connection. I am prioritizing connection. I am choosing to build my life and therefore my art around relationship, feeling, being, and reciprocity, honoring the slow moments again, remembering that it is in the slowness where relating on deeper levels occurs, where you can hear and feel the movements of the forces that interconnect it all and us all together. We all know these concepts intellectually. We all have innate experiences where we can feel ourselves expand outwards into the vast web of all life that we exist as part of. But the extent that we are actually moved by these experiences, the extent to which we are influenced by them in this modern time, is determined by how present we really are. Our presence, which I have learned is a conscious and practiced choice, that depth is determined by our nervous systems and ability to get out of our minds and reconnect with our bodies, with the body of the earth. To merge this remembrance of our oneness is what makes me feel truly alive and what influences me to create in relational reciprocity. I didn't realize until now being after experiencing such intense creative burnout and disconnection to myself, to my body, and to my source of inspiration, did I come to truly understand what the source of my main muse actually is. It's a combination of source and state, a state of mind and of being. The state comes first. It's a combination of groundedness, awareness, stillness, and connectedness. And then once there, the source, being the threads, the energies of the vast interconnected web of all life, speaks and inspires. Then these feelings and sparks of heart, thought and sensation translate to images or melodies, but mostly images. It's like a response to wanting to not only celebrate the state and the deep peace, awe and beauty that it shares and brings, but to hold on to it, to create a reminder, a memento, an expression to bring into my space and to allow others to bring into their spaces if they wish, to help stay connected, to calm and to soothe when the human experience gets busy, crazy, and disconnected.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, straight from the journal. I hope made sense.
Amazing. I really love that final image that you brought of, the state first. And how you're
That's
coming...
what I've learned.
Yeah, you're coming back into that state, and when you're not in that state, then you can't access the source.
Exactly. And this has been the big gift in this tumultuous time. Yeah.
Wow, Dalee, that is really insightful. I really loved hearing that.
Well, thanks for receiving it, Jess.
So lovely, so lovely. I know that there's been some lovely relationships with herbs and plants developing over the last little while that have been helping you to attain and maintain that state of stillness and calm and peace. Before we hit record, we were talking about your beautiful cuppa, how you have withania in there and how you're really enjoying that herb at the moment. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, leaning back into herbs has been, to me, that has been a really big marker of how much better I'm getting, because I feel like I have to be going at a certain pace to be able to really allow herbalism back into my everyday life. And it is so much about that relationship with my garden that reminds me to lean into the herbs. And I have now, for a little while now, I've been making my cuppa, this particular cuppa I've been enjoying a lot. Yeah, withania, hibiscus and peppermint has been the mix, and I've been having that in the morning with my big sun ochre, and that just feels like such a grounding, peaceful cup, like peace in a cup. And it's been really, really nice, really soothing, it feels like, and connecting. And I'm working at the moment with Tulsi. I've just made a print that is the spirit of Tulsi, and I made the print actually, and I'm now having a journey with the plant post making the print, which is a bit different to how I've worked in the past. But I've been leaning into a Tulsi tincture that you made, Jess, your lovely Tulsi, and planting her back in the garden after the wallabies ate my big bushes. And Tulsi feels like a really special one for this time. Tulsi feels like, she's really calling out to me and inviting me to form a deeper relationship there. So I'm really enjoying having that again, having that as part of my creative practice and as part of my daily life again.
Are you able to share the story of your Tulsi print?
It's really, there's not a lot of a story. It's more of an expression of a feeling, really. It's a pretty simple image of a little bird that's clasping a Tulsi branch in its claws and in its beak, and it's kind of swirling around the bird, and then inside the bird is also, there's Tulsi growing. So it feels like, and I think you said it to me when you first saw it, that you saw that it was depicting the lift that Tulsi brings. And I hadn't seen it like that, but since you said that, I was feeling like, yes, Tulsi is giving me a lift. It's like lifting me back into somewhere where I need to be. So I'm quite fascinated by that with art, that, you know, you can create an image and then even afterwards you can learn about why it is that it came out in that way. And the more I learn about Tulsi and I look at that image that I created, I'm like, right, yeah, okay.
I love how you're leaning on the combination of those two adaptogens. They're just such a beautiful class of herb. Where there's been any sort of mental or physical stress, you know that they help the body adapt to stress. You know, I'm always saying to people, I'm really sorry, but I can't take your stress away. I can't do that for you, unfortunately, but I can really help your body and mind respond to stress in a healthier way. So the fact that you've selected those two beautiful herbs at a time when stress has been really impacting on your mental and physical well-being is just so spot on. I love that you've reached for Withania first because it's so beautifully grounding. So you've been kind of in this whirlwind and whirlpool of, you know, busyness and overwhelm, and Withania's just grabbed you in this beautiful grounding hug, and, you know, you've been consistent with her, so she's really helped to kind of bring you down. And now reaching for Tulsi to just bring that uplift of spirit. Oh, it's just such a beautiful combination.
And it's so beautiful that that wasn't conscious. I just felt to do that. I love that. I love that. And this is the beauty of the herbs, isn't it?
Your instinct draws you to what's needed, and then, you know, you've experienced that beauty of Withania, and it's motivated you to keep going and continue that relationship.
And I'm seeing the little shifts in my son as well, you know, as he goes through a rough, emotional, you know, tricky transitional time. I can see from, you know, a kid who's like, I'm not drinking that, it tastes like dirt, to, oh yeah, I'll have my cup of tea, and he's sitting there with me drinking, you know, this beautiful tea and really wanting it again the next day and being ready for it. So thank you, Withania. Beautiful.
And such a beautiful herb for teens too, when, you know, there's that intense growth, so their nutritional needs are really high, and Withania is that real tonic, iron-rich, blood-building. So, lovely choice for him too.
Awesome.
Yeah, really nice. So we have had the most beautiful, far-ranging conversation. I've absolutely loved every minute of it. But I'd love to end on ways that people can connect with you now and how that looks differently to, say, 12, 18 months ago.
Yeah, so I have stepped back from the clothing business into just making the artwork for the clothing. And we have separated now websites. We've got our website. Clarey's merged the Dalee Ella wearable collection with her wearable brand storyline under one umbrella, which is Slow Fashion Australia. So you can find our clothes that we still collaboratively make. Clarey runs the business now, and I'm just in the background making the art and telling the stories of the prints. You can find them under slowfashionaustralia.com.au. And my printmaking work, I'm about to release an all-new website, which is going to be focused around my paper prints. So a lot of new prints and a lot of new work that is going to be launching, I still think a couple of months away, but you can find me now at daleeellaprintmaker.com.au. And I also am launching some new shirts and that kind of thing.
And you're writing on Substack and doing video.
Oh, yes. Actually, Substack is a fun new place. So part of this whole journey was realizing that social media is not something that's supporting my overall health and my nervous system health. So I've stepped back a bit from social media and I've moved over to Substack, which feels like more of a held, smaller community, a more intentional community if you want to connect deeper with my work and the stories behind my work from my garden. I'm also going to be sharing a lot about our very DIY homesteading life here on our community. We're going to be hand building a new print studio for me this year. So I'm going to be sharing a lot more in-depth, longer form video blogs around our lifestyle here and how that inspires my print work. So that's the Dalee Ella creative community, and that's on Substack.
Lots of exciting opportunities for people to connect with you.
Oh, I love connecting with people. Come find me.
So I'll put all of those ways that people can connect with you in the show notes, and I'm really excited for people to watch this next part of your journey unfold. It's such a beautiful thing to witness. Thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me so honestly and candidly and sharing. It's just been absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah, I feel all warm and fuzzy talking to you, so thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. I'm so glad you tuned into this episode of Self-Care with Herbs, a segment of the Elder Tree podcast. The Elder Tree is a non-profit dedicated to putting the medicine in the hands of the people through grassroots herbal education and earth skills, weaving a strong community of herbalists, healers and plant folk in Australia. If you'd like to dive a little deeper, you can head over to our Patreon, the Elder Tree Trove, to access special content from our podcast guests. I hope you found something in this episode that has inspired you to begin to lean into those plant allies and to experience your practice of self-care blossoming and blooming. I look forward to sharing more ways you can weave plant medicine into your days next month.